morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. This show is produced and broadcast from Portland, Oregon, USA. Now, for your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals, and about whatever it is we have decided to talk about. And the topic this evening is fight against sex trafficking and other stuff that you'll hear about as the show goes on. My guests this evening are to my immediate right, Wen Wakila.
Wakala, close enough.
Wakala, I'll blow it again. And Cindy
Romine.
Romine, yeah.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you for
Don.
coming on. Such wonderful smiles you have, yeah. And I said something to you before the show started, and I said I wasn't going to do it during the show, but I know Wen from the gym,
Yeah.
because I often see her in the pool and in the hot tub. And I said, when the show starts, I'm going to say to you, I hardly recognize you with clothes on.
I think we both look better with clothes.
I think we both do. And you are a friend of hers.
Yes, I am.
And say how you met her.
How did I meet Wen? We met because of the issue of sex trafficking, mainly in the Portland area.
Mm-hmm.
And so we met by doing different conferences together, and then we became really good friends. Wen has also been with me in the Philippines while we were fighting sex trafficking over there.
Oh, wow. What a commendable job you're doing. So, as you know, the show goes for about 58, 59 minutes, and the first half hour or so we'll be talking about who you are personally. So viewers have an idea where you're coming from when you talk about sex trafficking, those kinds of things. And I haven't been on for a few weeks, so I'm kind of mumbling, so bear with me. And I look at these beautiful ladies and I mumble over them all.
Oh,
So shall we?
Can we say happy, if you want to say happy, National Human Trafficking Awareness Month. That's what January is.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be just a day on January 11th, but in 2010, President Obama made it an entire month, the whole month of January.
And say that title again. What is
National
it?
Human Trafficking Prevention Month.
Not just sex trafficking, but human trafficking.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
slavery
includes
and all.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've been at this for a while.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
For me, about 7 years or so now. Cindy, much longer.
27 years.
Why so many years doing that?
Isn't that amazing? My husband was had a job in the Philippines, and so we were doing a tourist attraction one day, and we were in a canoe with an outrigger, and we were going up a river. And on the bank of the river, I saw a Caucasian man, blonde hair, blue eyes, and he was talking to a Filipino couple. And I thought I was watching a drug transaction because they traded money. He paid them. So I thought now drugs were going to be exchanged. But a little girl was exchanged.
A little girl.
And she was about 3 or 4 years old.
Gee, many Christmas.
And he played with her for a few minutes. And we were moving. So, you know, I'm moving down the river. So on the bank of the river, this is happening. And I'm looking and looking and looking, you know, watching this transpire. But I'm sure because of the geography around there, he did not realize that I could watch him then rape her. So that changed my life 27 years ago. I saw that.
Oh my gosh.
So 27 years ago, changed my life. And then we went down to Olongapo, which is used to be Subic Bay Naval Base.
Yes.
And all of the guys from Vietnam would do R&R there. And so there were a lot of prostitutes in that area. And so when I went there, I saw all of our children fathered by U.S. military
Mixed
on the
races.
street, mixed race, on the street, you know, eating garbage, being molested at night. And I was just enraged. And so we started our first safe house there in Subic Bay.
Oh my gosh. Well, let's continue with the bio stuff. We'll talk some more about that in the main part of the show. You've got some stories, I'm sure.
I have tons of stories. Win and I have stories. Yeah, we have stories.
Okay, now who should I talk to first about who you are personally? Let's talk with Wen.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And I want to warn you, I often ask a surprise question that you least expect.
Okay.
And I can ask it now, or shall we wait till later?
Go for it.
Go for it now. When, if I were to ask your best friend, who is Win, what would he or she say? Win is, be that person. Who
A very giving person, I think they would say.
be that person. Win is that. Okay.
Okay, Win is
Thank you.
very community-oriented. Is trying to help people most of the time. Her life goals evolve around making the world a better place.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay. Oh, when and where were you born? I'm not supposed to ask you.
Oh,
when.
yes. Okay. No, I won't tell you when. Other than to say I'm a Leo. No. I was born in Astoria with a lot of other Finns. I'm Finnish, but I never grew up there. I grew up in southwestern Oregon in a little logging community. So, and then I moved to Portland probably like in '78, and I've been in the Portland area ever since.
And so you've been in Oregon most of your life.
Yes, I did live in Seattle area, and I lived in San Jose too. So.
Okay. Anything significant about your cultural heritage that's worth reporting?
I think it's very fascinating. It turns out both my grandparents on my Finnish side came over from Finland, and my grandma, her brother was already in Astoria and raised money to send back to get more of the family over here. They were having a big famine at the time, and her older sister was supposed to come but was too sick to even come. She was so weak. And so they made my grandma come. And it turned out my mom remembers her telling stories about how her mother would hide her in the closet because the Russian soldiers were coming and they would rape the young girls and stuff. Anyway, so my grandma came and the rest of the family starved to death.
Oh my
She was a Laplander. I can't imagine the things our grandparents went through were just horrific, so I feel very fortunate, the background and the upbringing I've had.
So this rape and abuse of women is just pervasive all over the world, no matter which culture you're in almost.
It is actually a thing warring countries will do to the other country to humiliate that country is to rape the women. Yeah.
All right. And
And
if I ask you a question that you don't want to answer, don't answer it.
Okay, I'll let you know.
A religious preference? Do you have one?
Christianity. Yeah.
You've always been that.
But I'm pretty much. I think a lot of your religious background depends on where you're born.
Of course.
So if I was born in China, I'd probably be Buddhist, or, I mean, just wherever you're born, I think has a lot to do with
the family influence, and how they
the
taught
cultural.
you to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your formal education.
Bachelor's degree from OSU. I was a Beaver, and then graduate.
Oregon State University.
Yes.
We're seen around the world,
Yeah. And graduate school at about 4 different colleges. So.
What did you do in graduate school?
I first started out in speech communication, and then I went for a government degree, and then I ended up doing more in teaching because I went ahead and renewed my teaching license. So I was a government accounting manager, but I graduated in speech communication education, so I knew how to talk well enough to get a job.
I was reading your material, and I figured I'll get it out of you firsthand rather than read from your stuff here. Any other education worth mentioning?
Oh yes, I worked for Portland Police for a while and also for Washington County Sheriff's Office. Even though I wasn't a police officer, I managed their money. And through that work, I ended up, right after 9/11, I did counterterrorism type classes, and I also did drug trafficking and then human trafficking. And then I also did things like media and international trade, all sorts of things I was interested in. I took a really nice class on Gandhi. That was wonderful at PSU.
Mohandas?
Yeah,
Oh,
it was great.
Gosh.
I really enjoyed it. Good teacher. It wasn't you, was it?
No. It's going to be that kind of a night, I can tell you right now. I'm leaving. And you talk now about what you did in your work life. Are you still working
No,
for
I've
anybody?
been retired for 8.5 years.
8.5 years.
So what I do as a volunteer. And in my organization, I don't accept any money, but there are really good organizations that I know it's their income and they need the money to help survivors and whatnot. So my goal is to help promote them and network them and just raise awareness throughout the population. But every month I highlight a different organization for people to send donations to.
That's great.
It works out because, like I said, I don't know what I do with the money. I do my own thing, so I don't really need the money. I'm retired and I have a nice retirement. So.
Yeah, what do you do for martinis and stuff like that?
Happy hour, like any retired person. I haven't learned to like vodka yet either.
Do you have a wife, a husband, a boyfriend,
No,
a girlfriend, or whatever?
Currently, I'm single.
Single. Uh-oh,
Yeah.
she's single out there.
Yeah, anybody interested?
Yeah.
Cindy's always trying to line me up with somebody.
Do you have children?
No, I've been engaged twice, but I've never been married. So.
Okay.
And they both have told me they married the wrong woman.
Would you comment on your political persuasion? Are you left, right, center, or off the charts?
Progressive.
Progressive.
Yeah.
And any memberships in political?
Oh, actually, I ran for state representative a couple years ago in the Democratic Party.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
How'd you do?
I lost.
We know that.
I was in a Republican area, but I decided it was a good platform to talk about human trafficking. I was asked to run, and I thought, well, I wasn't sure about it at first because of the time involvement. But then I thought, well, this will be a platform I can use to help spread more word about human trafficking, so that's what I did. And I met more people and networked more, and that's part of what I like to do, especially with helping human trafficking, is to network and make connections. Mm-hmm. So I got to meet even more people. So.
And how long are you going to stay with this line of activity?
Well, probably a long time. I haven't even thought about it. Because I'm retired and I run my own organization, I do exactly what I want. So that makes it really nice. I do get people who contact me quite a bit for ways for them to get involved and whatnot, and then I will refer them to other organizations and stuff. And then what I love to do is, when I used to be executive director for Oath, and under that I started organizations or clubs in about, I think, 12 colleges and 10 high schools and 1 middle school, Cindy's. And the kids are so cool, and they're really behind the issue of human trafficking. And when they would want to have events, I would help them get speakers and help them organize the event and do whatever I can as a resource to them, not as their boss. I want to encourage them. So I still like to do that. I still like to be someone who can help other people do events in this area and to grow in this area. And their enthusiasm is just spontaneous, and it really encourages me.
So
I'm
OATH
very
is
impressed.
an acronym. What does that mean?
Well, that stands for Oregonians Against Trafficking Humans. But when I started when I ran for political office, I couldn't do political things under Department of Justice, so I started my own organization.
Mm-hmm.
FAST, Fight Against Sex Trafficking and Fight Against Slavery/Trafficking.
Yeah, say that again.
Fight against sex trafficking, FAST, and Fight Against Slavery, /trafficking. So it still turns out to be FAST, slavery trafficking.
Website?
fastnw.org.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fast Northwest.
Okay, there it is. I wanted to be sure it was on screen.
Yeah, so maybe someday we'll have them all over the world, and then, or across the U.S., and then it could be Fast Southwest, Fast Northeast, Fast. You got to leave open the opportunities.
Yes, yeah. Now, memberships in political, social, or civic organizations, you mentioned
Oh,
a
I'm
few.
a lot, yes.
A lot of them.
City Club of Portland is, in fact, City Club of Portland is how I started my whole human trafficking series. This is the start of my 7th year of a series on human trafficking at Kel's Irish Pub, who have been very good and have always given me the space for free. But I used to be co-chair for different committees for City Club, and then they merged all of them, and I went to them and said, do you care, would you guys be interested in having an event on human trafficking? And they said, well, nobody's interested in that. So then the next year, I got on the committee, and I said, I said, do you care if I have an event on human trafficking? And they said, go for it. And originally, it was supposed to be just a 3-series thing. And I've probably had, for the first 2 or 3 years, I had one every month.
Wow.
Except for Christmas. And now it's been probably 4 or 5 a year. So I've done probably like 30 or more, somewhere around 30.
That's a bunch.
So what was supposed to be 3 has turned into a lot more. And what is really encouraging to me about it all is because of the awareness we've done, laws have changed in Oregon.
Yes, yes.
We've really improved laws. There's so much more awareness. And I got to tell this, do you mind if I tell a story on Senator Ron Wyden? Yes, is it okay?
I dare you.
Okay. Well, I was coming back from Europe, and I was just, at the time I was not yet executive director for Oath. They hadn't even started it yet, but I was doing my series at Kel's Irish Pub through City Club. And I ran into Ron at the Dallas airport when he was coming back from DC and I was coming back from overseas. And so I talked to him about human trafficking. And then he had the misfortune of sitting right in front of me on the airplane. And we were on the aisle seat. And I kept going like this to his elbow. and by the end of the trip, he and I were the only 2 awake on the plane. It was night. Everybody else was sleeping. But by the end of the trip, he agreed to be a co-sponsor for my Kel's series. So he's always been a co-sponsor, and Commissioner McKeel, and then Brad Avakian, Labor Commissioner, and Senator Brent Barton was one of the first, Representative Brent Barton helped put through the first laws on human trafficking,
Oregon
and Jefferson
State.
Smith at the time too, and they were both co-sponsors, and now I have, I still have those people, and I have Deborah Boone now as a co-sponsor.
And these are local politicos.
Yes, and state.
State.
Yeah, and Ron, of course, is federal. Anyway, so it's been wonderful, and we used to go around Oregon doing a lot of talks. We had over 600 people show up in Bend for a talk we did. I did a talk down. I was part of a group that did a talk down in Coos Bay with a different club. I've talked in Corvallis, Bend, Coos Bay, Lebanon, Eugene a lot.
You run the University of Oregon's weekend.
Yeah, we have I teach a class down there at University of Oregon. This will be my 5th year. It's a 1-hour credit class, but it's more like a conference. I get the speakers and I MC it, and then we have different wonderful speakers like Cindy come in, the FBI, police, different organizations. We get a survivor to come in and talk. So, and usually the classes have had about 280 people.
Can we go for 120 minutes? This is going to take longer than I thought.
Anyway, it's been the awareness, it's been like a snowball. I mean, it started up on the mountain just a little bit, and it's been going downhill and getting bigger and bigger, and laws have changed, and awareness is spreading, and we now have some safe houses where, when I first started, there were less than 100 beds for girls in the entire United States.
That's
None
incredible.
in Oregon. Yeah, so and we've been told, actually, I coordinated some events with World Affairs Council where we talked with people from other countries, and they told us, and I would bring in people like Cindy and the police and the DA's office and stuff, and they told us we were doing more here in Oregon than any other state they visited.
That made you feel good.
Yes.
But you know, we're going to stop now
Okay,
because
that's
you
enough.
allow some time.
Yes.
But I got one more question for you.
Please shut up. Was that it?
I don't know about this place. Persons from the past or alive today that particularly impressed you or you idealize or look up to. Any names come to mind for you?
Well,
one or two?
Well, one's for sure Cindy, but I can tell you it's interesting. When I went to see Les Miserables, that was my favorite book in high school. And just getting back and seeing that story, and that was about a girl being prostituted.
Yes.
And it just hit me that my passion, because that story really moved me back then, but I didn't remember the details of the story. But that story had impacted me and started my passion way back in high school.
And what name is that called tonight? Victor Hugo?
Yes, Victor Hugo.
Yeah. Do you ever think about me? Never mind. So
your name's Dawn. I'm sorry.
Let's move on here to Cindy, all right?
Yes.
Shall we start by you telling me where you were born?
Omaha, Nebraska.
Omaha, Nebraska. Ready for your trick question?
Sure.
Why were you born?
Why was I born?
Yes.
Probably because God wanted me here on this planet at this time for this cause.
Oh, you got the answers, all right. You've been at this stuff for a while, huh?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. And anything significant about your cultural heritage?
Not really. My, my ancestors came over and went through Ellis Island and immigrated in, and from Germany and Denmark, and we all settled in Minnesota and Nebraska, and I'm a farm girl.
Okay. And when did you leave?
Labor trafficking.
Yeah, labor trafficking, yeah, for sure. When did I leave?
Yeah.
I left my freshman year in high school and moved to Southern California. My father was transferred. And then I went to college in Oregon.
And what did you take your degree in?
I now have my doctor's degree in, as the title is the Doctor of Ministry in Theology from Covington Theological Seminary in Georgia.
Oh, the Georgia for that. All right. And what's your religious preference today?
I'm a Christian.
A Christian?
Yeah.
Any particular denomination?
No, I'm pretty interdenominational. Yeah.
I see myself as a Christian with a small c. I'm also a humanist and an atheist. Not an atheist, that's a pejorative. But I used to be a Roman Catholic kid. I was an altar boy for years and years. And see this hole in my chest here? Mea culpa was all these years. You never heard that before. I just had enough of that jazz. I'm going to be an atheist. Not an atheist, yeah. But anyhow, we talked about your education, and you do anything to earn money, upkeep? You have a job, or you retired?
I only rescue kids.
And,
That's all I do is rescue children.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we have a nonprofit organization called To Rescue.
Called To Rescue.
Yes, and we work here in the United States, all over the nation, and we work in the Philippines. I've done work in 88 different countries, and my passion is just making sure kids are okay.
And how do you do that? You talk to people in subordinate organizations, or what kind of stuff do you actually do?
She gets phone calls.
Yeah, we actually, usually when I go into a country, I work with the government and make sure that we're, absolutely legal in every country. And so in the Philippines, we are completely established as a nonprofit in the Philippines under their law, and I've even had audience with their vice president of the country. And yeah, so we go right to the top because you can get everything done if you go where people are movers and shakers. So we do that, but of course we go to the masses because that's where we rescue.
And how many years? I'm afraid to repeat it. I may make a mistake.
27.
27 years.
I don't look old enough for that, right?
No.
No, we don't act it
You've been
either.
hanging around too long with her with the wind. Yeah. And you're still enjoying that work?
Yes, very much. Yeah. Matter of fact, I've just had some organizations ask me to help Israel. So I'll be starting our work there.
So is there need for your work in Israel?
Yes.
The
Yes.
modern day.
Sex trafficking is a $500 million money maker in Israel. There's
in Israel.
250 brothels in Tel Aviv. And what they say is if you want to pray, you go to Jerusalem. And if you want to play, you go to Tel Aviv. So that there's a huge need there.
Netanyahu is going to come for you. You better be careful.
He'll love me. I'll be helping, so it's okay.
Yeah. And do you have a partner? A boyfriend?
My
a
husband,
girlfriend?
yes.
Husband?
My husband of 40. This year will be our 46th wedding anniversary.
Oh, that's a long time, yeah. Any children, grandchildren?
Yes, I have a son, and I have one gorgeous daughter-in-law who's actually here in the studio with us, and then I have a wonderful granddaughter who's 18 years old. And we all travel together as a family, and Wynn goes with us too, and we just rescue kids.
What a marvelous, marvelous thing you're doing, yeah. And did we talk about your education?
Yep, we did.
Yes, we did, yeah. My age, you know.
Did you know that human trafficking is the second largest criminal activity in the world? It surpassed weapons trafficking, and it's the fastest growing criminal activity in the world.
And it's growing nowadays.
Yes.
Oh my.
$32 billion business right now in the world.
And over 27, I can't remember how many people were trafficked.
1.2 million?
So, yeah.
Yeah, a year.
88 countries?
I've been in 88 countries,
I didn't
yes.
know there were that many countries in the world.
There's way more than 88.
And you've been to, and when you're in pursuit of what you're about with trafficking, human trafficking, and this is what takes you to these countries
Yes.
and talking to all these people. I bet you've got a bunch of stories.
I have so many stories, it's unbelievable.
Okay, persons from the past alive today that you admired. or look up
Alive
to.
today that I admire. You know, one of the people that I really admire a lot is the lady who runs our safe house. So we rescue the girls and we take them to our safe house, and we have the most wonderful mother in the world that lives with them and brings them back to health.
The safe house here in Portland?
It's not in Portland, it's in Oregon though.
In Oregon, yes. Okay.
Yes,
Enough.
yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you look up to her and admire her.
Well, yeah. Who wants to go live with all the girls? I mean, it's the hardest job in the world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she does it, and she does it well.
Good, good. All right. Let's take a break, Mr. Director, and we'll come back and talk some more about this stuff. Okay? So the cameras will be off. They're off now. Okay, thanks for staying tuned, and for you viewers who missed the opening of the show, you're watching Conversations with Dr. Don. It's an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals, and about whatever it is that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about sex trafficking and other related trafficking. And I'm laughing at myself because for 15 years I still blow the opening every time. So let's go back and talk about the fight against sex trafficking. You were telling me some stories as I was talking to you about who you are personally. And some questions to ask you are, what are the statistics internationally? And you talked about some numbers earlier on.
1.2 million children are trafficked every year worldwide. It's a $32 billion business worldwide. About 150,000 children are trafficked in the U.S. every year.
That's domestic.
That's incredible.
Domestic.
That's not
yeah.
people coming from other countries.
Yeah.
Wow.
We have up to 300,000, they figure 350,000 homeless youth. So we're talking youth, and about half of them, they figure, are probably being trafficked, and they usually get approached within 48 hours of being on the street.
What's being done about it?
What's nice here in Oregon, anyway, is the police now are being trained about this, and they're learning to see the girls as victims rather than as criminals.
Yeah.
So that makes a major difference.
Things are changing in that direction.
And I would say it's changing all over the United
I
States.
agree. I agree. Yeah.
It's getting better, and Senator Wyden is passing laws that are making a difference, and there's just more awareness.
Yes.
Even the movie Taken, was about human trafficking, and that might not have shown it in the United States, but it made people more aware of it. So it's like it's you hear about it on the news now all the time. They never used to talk about human trafficking on the news.
Yeah.
And now they do.
The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children just came out with brand new statistics for the U.S. And they say that there are 800,000 children missing today in the U.S.
Why don't we
800,000.
hear about that in the regular media?
Well, there's absolutely no way we could cover it. 800,000. I mean, there is so much going on, and a child goes missing, and then you've got 48 hours from the time you put the police report in until when the police start actually looking for them, because they're considered runaways in most situations. Of course, if they're little, they're abducted, but in a normal situation. So we have to wait till then they're classified from runaways to missing children. Then once they become missing children, they go into that statistic. So it's quite a process. And there is no way any law enforcement can track down 800,000 children. There's no way that's not humanly possible.
I got a question that you can't answer.
All right, try me.
Just watch. I was just watching our president address the nation here yesterday, and he talked about all sorts of things, and there's other things he didn't talk about. I think he should have talked about, like the number of bases America has around the world, and what's really going on in the Middle East. And lots of other really critically important things. And he touches on the wage disparities and the wealth disparities among people. But why isn't he talking about what you're talking about right now?
I think he is aware of it. And
awareness and saying something about it for us is a difference.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I'm sure I wish he would have put it in there. If you noticed, I was Catholic, kind of somewhat still am, but probably more Episcopalian. That's how I grew up. But the Pope recently talked about human trafficking.
Oh, yeah.
So
he's something else, isn't he?
He is. Yeah. He's come out very strongly against sex trafficking, human trafficking. He just was in Manila, and he said to parents, it is totally your responsibility to raise these children and keep them safe. I was so happy to hear him say that, right? It's the parents' responsibility to keep your children safe. Because, of course, in every country, there is that lack of parenting, even in our country. We need parents that really stand up, and it's difficult right now.
And it does turn out, even here, I mean, in the United States, they found that most of the girls that are trafficked come from foster care. So, that could also mean they're on the streets part of the time and are part of the homeless, because they've usually been abused in a home is why they're no longer in that home. and then they'll go to another home and they might be abused there too, or they might not get along with the people, so then they run away and become homeless. And we do have a really good organization here in Portland called Compassion Connect, who is working with foster care children as a point of trying to do something about this, and they're working with DHS too. So we are fortunate that, and lots of people wonder how they can help. And some of the things we'll say is help at foster care, help if you want to go be a teacher's aide in a class where, I can't remember what it's called, but where the children are behind in school, because that's a place that pimps will send people to recruit girls because they already feel bad about themselves. So there's different things. It's nice if we can stop the girls from being trafficked or recruited to start with. So there are things the average person can do to make a difference. And those are two examples.
So is there any particular country where it's more prevalent than in others?
Ireland?
You know what? As I go throughout the world,
Yeah.
every country in the world has a problem. And you would think, well, it has to be the poorest ones have the worst problem, and certainly they have horrible problems. But this is United States of America.
Yeah.
And we are not considered a poor country, and we have 150,000 trafficked in the United States. So it's not just people that are poverty-stricken, and it's not just people that are poor in the United States that are losing their daughters. You know, it's shocking that a lot of these girls come from homes that are very, very put together. And somebody starts emailing them, and they are lonely that night or whatever, and they start emailing back, and pretty soon they've got this wonderful relationship, and the guy really loves her, and then he comes and picks her up, and they're gone, and they're gone. And it happens like that every day, all day long, and it's not just the poor kids.
Yeah, you can talk to, like, the Portland Police, one of the former sergeants we worked with that is over the sex trafficking unit. He pointed out that more and more it was getting to be middle income.
Middle income,
It wasn't just a poor person problem.
The average age of a kid taken for sex trafficking in the U.S. is 13.
13.
Yeah, it's not, a lot of people think it's going to be your high school girls, but actually is that middle junior high that really we need to watch. Their hormones are raging, everything's raging, and we really need to watch them as parents as they're going through those 11, 12, 13, 14 years. Those are the really critical years to watch your kids.
So I think throughout history this has been going on
Absolutely.
for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Yes.
Except
I want to hear an exception.
except back then, it was probably done more well, for one thing, people only lived to the age of 30.
Yes.
And another thing, the girls were seen probably as chattel, like these girls are. But I think the problem now is the girls get nothing. They get beaten. They say they will harm their family. It's much more dangerous now, I would say, than it probably used to be.
It looks different too, right? I mean, if you think back to the Old West, it was the brothels, and the women were older, and it was a conscious decision for an adult to be making that decision. But with the with internet and pornography is so prevalent everywhere, the appetite, may I say, the appetite of the user has become younger and younger and younger. And so now we're seeing the little girls, that are victimized also, and it's very, very sad. And child pornography is just rampant. And of course, that's multi-billions of dollars of income off of that child pornography.
And if you ever see the last interview Ted Bundy did before he was executed, he basically says in there, I don't know the exact words, but that pornography led him to do what he did. So some people do get addicted to pornogaphy, just like alcohol or drugs. It doesn't mean everybody does, but some do. And to keep that high going, they either have to go younger or go more violent.
Why then are they addicted, so turned on to pornography where it's such a thriving business? What is it about the male species or men?
Well, we've seen there's a group, they're no longer in existence, but it was called Aware Project, and they actually put together some work. And there was someone who studied pornography,
Yes.
and it does affect parts of the brain, just like drug or alcohol. And so it is something, it's a chemical thing.
Chemical reaction in the brain while you're watching pornography, and you become addicted to that. You like that high.
Not everybody, but like we said, it's like drugs or alcohol. Some people do. And it turns out one report showed that over 50% of the time spent, around the world on the internet is in pornography. People looking at pornography sites.
And I thought I knew a lot of stuff, but I know a little of what you're talking about, but not to the extent that you're talking about it now. Which countries have you been in where events or things that happen that produce memories or thoughts that you will share with us? You spent a lot
The
of time in the
tragedy.
Philippines.
Yeah,
Yes.
the tragedy. Well, of course, I think probably the Philippines because I've spent the most time there. But also I've had very tragic memories out of Mexico. I mean, just really every country I've been to, every child that has been molested, every child that's victimized is a tragedy.
Of course.
Is a tragedy. And of course, there are greater tragedies that last longer or are more violent. And those are just, they're just horrible. They're horrible to think about. And most people don't want to think about it or talk about it. And that's why we don't talk about sex trafficking.
And like we were talking about, Amanda Marshall did a study here in Oregon, and they found, they worked with DHS, PSU put together the study, and they worked between DHS and the police, and they found in the Portland metropolitan area, over a period of 4 years, they found 469 girls who had been trafficked.
In
Here,
4 years.
here in Portland.
It's unbelievable.
Not even the whole state, just in Portland. And I don't know if you remember probably about 6 years ago now, they had a big raid down in Springfield.
Yeah.
And they arrested like 9 or 10 people, or at least 8 people, on human trafficking charges.
So when these girls are rescued, is there any data that shows what happens to them after they've been rescued and returned to normal life?
Well, there's several things that happen. So we work a lot with minor children. So if you have a minor child, the first thing that happens is if they belong to their parents, the parents the parents say, okay, now what do we do? And we help the parents figure out how to get their kid back to health and get them right counselors. And if they are part of the foster system, they go back to the foster system. And we have houses for the ones that are over 18. And our house, actually, the one that we have now in Oregon, is taking some of the worst kids that have been, actually the girls that have been in prison. And now we're getting those girls. And so that's really vital because...
Are they salvageable?
Well, everybody, I believe, is salvageable. Okay, so I kind of have a broad view on that. But I really want to believe that everybody's salvageable, and you have to give them at least 10 or 12 chances or more to make sure, because it's not an easy road back, right? It's not an easy road back. And, you have to have a lot of mercy. And that's why I said the mom that lives in the house is my hero, right?
Yeah.
Right? Because she deals with this day at 24/7.
And we do have the Portland police here work with SARC, Sexual Abuse Resource Center. In fact, SARC is currently, if anyone's interested, looking for people to volunteer to be caseworkers with them. And they will work with the Portland police when a girl is identified. They'll start talking to the girl and trying to help her get her out of the life, what they call the life. And then if they can get them out, then SARC, they'll get counseling through SARC. And then they also set them up with Northwest LifeWorks, who will deal with the addictive side of things. Because usually the pimp gets them addicted to drugs and things like that too. So that's part of the reason why we're so good here in Oregon, is because they do work together. And
I think we need to make sure we mention Janus Youth.
Oh yes, Janus Youth is one of the people. City of Portland passed a law and gave money for, I think it was a couple of months, and it was like 7 beds, and it was through Janus Youth was handling it. And then Multnomah County kicked in more money to make it like a year stay. But it, Detective Keith Bickford said one time it is probably about 5 stages that a girl needs to go through to get back to being fully rehabilitated, because you have to look at the drug addictions, and then you have to look at the mental health, and then you have to look at getting job skills and social skills, and so it takes about 5 stages before they're ready to be on their own.
Wow.
Yeah, it's much worse. I mean, domestic violence is bad, but this is
Really horrible.
yeah, really horrible. I mean, being raped 20 to 30 times a day, and it's not nice sex. A lot of it, I'm sure, is violent.
So, any data on what percentage of the females in Oregon or in this country that are trafficked or abducted or?
Percentage?
Yeah.
Well, 150,000 kids
Yeah.
a year. 150,000
I don't
children
know how
a year
many
in the
kids there
U.S.
are total.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can tell you for a local statistic, about, I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago now, Beaverton School District identified 1,500 enrolled students who were homeless.
Yeah, it's really an interest. I think it's a social and a cultural switch. We're seeing a switch on the street. And the switch is this, that it's popular to not live at home and just kind of bed hop with all of your friends.
Yeah, from house to house.
Yeah, from house to house. They're calling them displaced children. And so like in Clark County in Vancouver, where I live in Clark County, there's 600 displaced children tonight. So they don't count them as runaways. They don't count them as missing children.
And
they're
probably
displaced.
They're enrolled in school still.
They are
They're
still enrolled
So we
in
don't
school.
even know how many more aren't even going to school. These are kids who are going to school every
This
day.
is ongoing.
It's ongoing. And it's kind of a cultural thing. You know, let's all go stay, you know, I'm going to stay at Susie's house, and then I'll stay at Carol's house, and whatever, you know. And so that's kind of a new cultural thing that's happening. Actually, not all that new, but that's what we're seeing today.
And part of what is happening and what makes these girls so vulnerable is the gangs now have always been pushing drugs, but they're finding it's safer and more lucrative to push girls. So a lot of gangs now are getting into sex trafficking rather than just drug trafficking. And sometimes, of course, they'll even traffic the girls to raise the money to buy the drugs that they're going to drug traffic.
Oh, I don't know what's happening to us anymore.
Are we scaring you?
Dr. Dawn is not going to sleep
have
tonight.
my mouth.
It's a very hard issue, but
mustn't
people
talk
like
about
Cindy and I have.
I feel a little embarrassed because I'm a male. I'm a man, you know, and.
Well, you can make a difference. There's even a
Oh,
group
how about
called
this, though?
Promise.
50% of all pimps are women, sir.
Yeah.
I'm
Or
embarrassed.
they might be called what they call the top bitch.
Yeah.
The one that
50%.
runs it
Yeah.
for the guys.
I heard there were madams who ran little houses, but
Madams
and the
have
whole
been
trade.
around forever. You know, everybody doesn't remember that. Madams have been around forever. And then now, you know, in the scheme of the street culture or the prostitution culture, the top girl will then say to the guy, hey, I can recruit faster than you can.
And then they don't have to work themselves.
Yeah.
They just manage. So that's a way for them to get away from being raped every day.
Yep.
And there are men's groups. I'm trying, what's Thomas?
Epic?
Oh yeah, EPIK Project is a group by Thomas Perez, and they try to get together groups of 100 men. And these are men who are fighting human trafficking. They spread awareness, and then they also raise money for the different organizations. So as a guy, you can get involved with EPIC very easily.
Yeah.
EPIK, yes. They're a great
Wow.
organization. There are
I've talked
lot
about
of people
this on
doing
my shows in
things.
the past, but I'm learning more and more, and you've been at it much longer, and I just keep learning more and more and more and more embarrassed and more tongue-tied as I try to ask you intelligent questions about it. So what can you tell my viewers that would be of value in
I
doing
have something I
about
would
this?
love to tell your viewers.
Well, tell them on
I would
camera
love to
3.
tell your viewers, for your children and your grandchildren, to keep them safe. make sure computers the modems are in your bedroom when you go to bed at night, so your kids are not getting up in the middle of the night and doing things on the computer like pornography.
And cell phones
And
too.
and then the cell phones, of course, you need to charge them in your house at night. And some of your older kids are going to throw a fit, but guess what? Kids are texting and sexting, taking pictures of their naked bodies and sexting them to someone else. So now their images are out there on social media, forever. They're embarrassed. They didn't realize what they were doing. These are young children. So our goal is to make sure that all parents know it's your responsibility to keep your children safe. And if you think your child could never do this, you are wrong. Because all kids are tempted. All kids want to be cool, right?
Yeah.
And so you just really have to keep your finger on your children.
Yes, that's a very important message.
Yeah.
Do you have something to say to the viewers?
Of course.
Okay.
I would say
that one. So 3 for you.
sometimes I hear people say, oh, this has been around forever. Well, slavery in the U.S. used to be around too, and it's gone. And I firmly believe that this is going away. And I have seen the young kids now, the college kids, the high school kids are so inspiring, and they have taken this on as a mission. And part of this, in my own belief, has to do with how people look at women. Women are not a lower class. Women are equal. Women cannot be treated as chattel or something inferior. And from that, I'd like to say I'd like to have a woman president and a woman vice president at the same time, and I have 2 people in mind.
I dare you. You want to name them?
Yeah, Hillary and Elizabeth. But I do think it's important for people to be aware and not just act like, oh, this is never going away. This is okay. If they understood, and both Cindy and I,
It's not okay.
we know survivors, and their stories are horrific. Most of these girls are not doing this because they want to.
Is there some way we can address men so that they can become aware that women and men should be treated equally and women are not subordinate? Is there some way we can change that?
I'm hoping.
It's all education, isn't it? It's education. It's getting people aware of the reality of, we're all created equal. We are all created equal, and it doesn't matter what color we are. Doesn't matter if we're male or female. Doesn't matter what religion we are. We're all created equal.
But the man is bigger and stronger and more powerful, and he can physically dominate.
You haven't seen me in the alley yet, have you, Dr. Don?
And sometimes it just takes smarts to to run away or something too. So it doesn't. But I do think to me, a man who treats a woman as inferior to himself is a man who has inferiority problems. That he feels like he needs to feel superior by feeling like he's above a woman. That's his way of feeling okay about himself. So I think these men need healing too, myself.
Across the globe?
Across the globe.
We just got to love everybody, love them all equally, and treat each other well.
Yeah, we got to love one another right now. So it looks like time is running out, so it's close to time for us to stop and get ready to say goodnight, and keep those pens and pencils handy because you may want to jot down something that we'll show you in the closing credits. Thanks for watching, and I invite you to give us feedback, both positive and negative, about any aspect of the show, and I mean it. It helps us to give you a better show in the future, and I want to thank my delightful guest, Cindy.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. You've been a delight.
And I'll see you in the pool.
With or without clothes?
Some clothes.
Okay, so how about a few public service announcements? To watch my shows on the web, Google Don Baham YouTube. There's hundreds of shows through the years. all kinds of subjects, and I interview pizza makers and truck drivers and researchers and medical doctors and politicians.
Try Truckers
even
Against Trafficking.
Truckers Against Trafficking.
It's a group.
And now I want to tell you about the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union. We got to protect our civil liberties because they are constantly in jeopardy, and I think they're going down the tubes faster and faster, even under the Obama administration. We got to protect our civil liberties, and we got to end corporate personhood. Go to www.movetoamend.org to end corporate personhood. So that decision has been horrendous. It's such that unlimited amounts of money can be thrown into the political process, such that the government then speaks for the super rich, the plutocrats, and the wealthy rather than you and our ordinary citizens. And to learn more about humanists and humanism, I'm a humanist minister. Go to AmericanHumanist.org and learn more about humanism. And what else do we have here? The Alliance for Democracy is a wonderful organization. It's a national organization. There's a Portland chapter. And we get together and talk about political and social issues that are ongoing and even worldwide, and mostly seniors anymore. And people travel to see them here in Oregon. I don't do it as much as I used to, but it feels good to do what I can to resist what's going on that needs addressing. There's a few people like that. Oh, and I remind you to remember KFC, not Kentucky Fried Chicken. Dr. Don's KFC. Kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind, be friendly, be charitable to you too. And you, and you, and you. Thanks again for watching.